I was sitting at the table, staring at the turkey I had cooked with my own 2 hands. My daughter looked at me with cold eyes and whispered under her breath, "She is confused. She should not be alone anymore." My hands were still, but my heart broke quietly. They thought I could not hear. They thought I did not understand. But I heard everything, and I remembered everything. I had raised her. I had held her through storms. Now, I was just an old woman in her way. That night, something inside me changed. I did not shout. I did not cry. I just made a decision that would shake everything. If you have ever felt forgotten, if you have ever been told you are too old or too weak, then this story is for you, because I was never confused. I was simply quiet, until the day I decided to speak clearly for the very last time. Before we jump back in, tell me, where are you listening from today? And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe, because tomorrow I have saved something truly special just for you. My name is Margaret Turner. I am 62 years old. I live in a small, quiet town in Oregon. The kind of town where people still wave at each other from their front porches, where the leaves turn golden in October, and the snow falls gently in December. I have lived in the same house for over 30 years. It is not large, but it is mine. The walls hold memories. Some are loud and joyful. Others are quiet and bittersweet. My late husband, Daniel, built the back porch himself. He always said it was the best place to watch the sunrise, and he was right. Every morning, I wake up early. I drink 1 cup of black coffee, sitting by the kitchen window. I watch the birds gather on the fence. Sometimes I talk to them. It may sound silly, but I find peace in those small moments. My daughter Claire calls once a week. She lives in the city now, busy with her job and her 2 children. She always sounds tired. I do not blame her. Life is fast these days. People rush from one place to another, barely stopping to breathe. She used to visit more often. When the children were younger, they would run through my hallway, laughing and calling for Grandma Maggie. I would bake cookies and let them stay up late. I still keep their drawings on my fridge. Faded crayon hearts and stick figures, with smiling faces. They make me feel remembered. My son, Andrew, moved to Texas years ago. He visits once a year around Christmas. He brings a gift, gives a hug, and leaves after 2 days. That is our rhythm. I have learned to accept it. I do not ask for much. I keep my house clean. I walk to the market twice a week. I bake bread on Sundays. My neighbor, Mrs. Ellis, sometimes joins me for tea. We talk about the weather and the past. She lost her husband too. We sit together in silence sometimes, and it is enough. My days are quiet. They are simple. I read old books, listen to classical music, and water my plants. Some people might call it lonely, but I call it peace. I used to work as a librarian before I retired. Books were my world. I loved watching children discover stories for the first time. I loved helping someone find exactly what they needed without knowing they were looking for it. Even now, I sometimes organize my own shelves by theme. It comforts me. There is a picture on my mantle. It is from Thanksgiving 5 years ago. Claire, Andrew, the grandchildren, and me, all smiling, arms around each other. That was the last time we were all together in this house. I remember how warm it felt. The smell of cinnamon and roasted turkey, the sound of laughter from the living room. That was a good year. Now holidays are quieter. Sometimes they come and sometimes they do not. They say it is too far, or too expensive, or too busy. I say I understand. And I do. Mostly. This year, Claire invited me to Thanksgiving at her home. She said, "We want you to feel included, Mom." I smiled and thanked her. I packed my dress, my special pie dish, and the same scarf Daniel gave me 20 years ago. I told myself it would be a good trip. I wanted it to be. But something felt different, not just in the way the house looked, or how the children barely looked up from their phones. It was something deeper, a shift I could not explain. Still, I told myself not to worry. Families change. Children grow. Traditions evolve. That is what everyone says. So I sat at that dinner table with a quiet smile and a hopeful heart. I did not know that this Thanksgiving would mark the beginning of something I never expected. A season of silence, of hidden words, and of cold stares I would never forget. But that comes later. For now, this was my normal life. Simple, predictable, and slowly fading into something I did not yet understand. When I arrived at Claire's house for Thanksgiving, the first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the peaceful kind I knew back home, but the kind that felt heavy, as if something unspoken had already filled the air before I stepped inside. Claire opened the door and gave me a quick hug. It was polite, but it lacked warmth. I tried not to let it bother me. Families go through seasons. Maybe she was just tired. "Come in, Mom," she said. "Dinner will be ready in an hour." The house looked beautiful, clean, modern, full of light, but it also felt unfamiliar, cold, like a place meant to impress rather than embrace. The children were on the couch. They barely looked up when I entered. They muttered something that sounded like, "Hi, Grandma," and returned their eyes to glowing screens. I gave them each a smile, but they did not see it. I placed my pie on the counter, hoping it might start a conversation. Claire glanced at it and said, "Oh, you brought the apple pie. I thought we agreed I would handle dessert." Her tone was light, but there was something sharp beneath it. I paused. I had not realized we agreed on anything like that. I must have misunderstood, or maybe I had simply forgotten. "I thought it might be nice to bring something," I replied, gently. She said nothing, just turned away to check the oven. In the living room, her husband Thomas was flipping through channels. He gave me a small nod. We had never been especially close, but there was always polite respect. This time, it felt more like he was tolerating my presence. I stood there, unsure of where to go, unsure of what to do with myself. It was a strange feeling, like being a guest in a place where I used to belong. Claire's voice called from the kitchen. "Mom, can you sit down? You are always fussing around." I blinked. I had only just arrived. I was not fussing. I had barely said a word. Still, I nodded and sat on the edge of the sofa. I folded my hands in my lap and watched the children laugh at something on their phones. They never showed me the screen. Dinner was served around 6. The table was beautiful. Candles, wine glasses, elegant. Dishes. Claire sat at one end, Thomas at the other. The children took their seats quickly. I was placed at the far end, near the window. No one offered a toast. No one said grace. That used to be my role, but no one asked me this time. We ate in mostly. Silence. Forks clinked. Water poured. Claire made small talk with Thomas about work. The children whispered to each other and giggled. Finally, I tried to speak. "I remember when you were small, Claire. You used to sit on the counter while I baked this pie. You would sneak pieces of apple and smile when you thought I did not see." There was a pause. Claire looked at me, then looked down at her plate. "Mom, we have already heard that story," she said softly, but firmly. My cheeks grew warm. I smiled to hide the sting. Thomas cleared his throat. "So Claire tells me you have been a little forgetful lately?" I looked at him, confused. Claire nodded. "You told me you lost your keys. 3 times last month, remember?" I blinked. "Yes, But I found them each time. She shrugged. Still. You are getting older, Mom. We just want to keep an eye on things. The room grew very quiet. I felt the air shift again, heavier now. I stared down at my plate. No one defended me. No one changed the subject. They just moved on. Later, after dinner, I stood by the window while Claire loaded the dishwasher. I looked out into the dark yard, trying to gather my thoughts. Something was changing. Something I could not yet explain. I was no longer part of the center. I was on the edge, looking in. Claire came beside me. She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. We are just trying to help, Mom. You do not have to worry about anything anymore. That sentence stayed with me. It was not comfort. It was something else. I nodded slowly, but inside I felt it. Something was not right. Something felt strange. That night, I could not sleep. The guest room Claire had prepared for me was clean and comfortable, but my mind would not rest. I lay beneath the soft blanket, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of the heating system humming through the vents. I kept thinking about the dinner table, about the way Claire had looked at me, about the way Thomas had spoken, as if I were not quite myself, as if I were slowly slipping away. I did not understand it. I had raised 2 children. I had managed a household. I had worked for over 30 years at the public library. I paid my bills, remembered birthdays, and made all my own decisions. I had lived a full, capable life. Yes, I had misplaced my keys. Yes, sometimes I needed to write things down so I would not forget. But who did not? Was that enough to worry them? Or had they already made up their minds about me? The question spun in my thoughts over and over, like a wheel that would not stop turning. In the morning, I made my way to the kitchen. Claire was already there, preparing coffee. "Good morning," I said softly. She looked up. "Morning, Mom. Did you sleep well?" I lied. "Yes, I did." She smiled politely. "I thought maybe we could take a little walk later. I want to talk to you about a few things." I nodded. "All right," but I felt a weight settle in my chest. We walked through the neighborhood just before noon. The air was crisp, the sky gray with winter clouds. Claire walked slightly ahead of me, her arms crossed. I could feel she was holding something inside. Finally, she spoke. "Mom, I want to talk to you about your future." I stopped walking. "My future?" She turned to face me. "Yes. I mean, things are changing. You live alone. You have no one nearby. What if something happens?" I kept my voice calm. "Nothing has happened." Claire sighed. "Not yet, but it might. We just think, maybe it is time to consider other options." I stared at her, confused. "What kind of options?" "Well," she said carefully, "maybe you could sell the house. Move into a senior community. Somewhere with help nearby. Somewhere safe." I looked down at the sidewalk. The ground felt far away. "I have lived in that house for 30 years, I said quietly. "I know," she said, "but things cannot stay the same forever." I wanted to argue. I wanted to say she was wrong. But the words caught in my throat. Was I being unreasonable? Was I just afraid of change? Or was she right? The doubt crept in slowly. Back at the house, I sat by the window and watched her children play a game on the television. Their laughter echoed through the room, but I could not feel it. I was somewhere else. Later that evening, as I helped clear the dishes, Claire stopped me. "Mom, you do not have to do that. Just sit down." Her words were kind on the surface, but I could feel the message beneath them. You are in the way. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I stood in the hallway alone. The family pictures on the wall showed smiling faces, birthday parties, school graduations. I stared at one of Claire's wedding photos and tried to remember how I felt that day. Proud, joyful, needed. Now I just felt confused. Not because I could not remember things, but because everything I thought was true now felt uncertain. Their words, their actions, they painted a picture of me that I did not recognize. Was I really fading? Or were they just not looking closely enough? I went back to the guest room and sat on the edge of the bed. I looked at my suitcase in the corner. I had packed it with care, thinking this would be a visit filled with love and warmth. Instead, I felt like a guest in someone else's life. A burden they were trying gently to move aside. I did not cry, but I held my hands tightly in my lap. And for the first time, I felt something I could not explain. I felt confused. Not in my mind, but in my heart. The next morning, Claire invited me to have tea on the back porch. It was chilly outside, but she had placed 2 warm blankets on the chairs and set the teapot on a small tray between us. It reminded me of when she was a child and used to play tea party in the garden. She would pour imaginary tea into tiny cups and pretend we were royalty. Back then, her face was always full of light. Now, she looked serious, composed, and older than I remembered. I wrapped the blanket around my shoulders and sat beside her. She poured the tea and added just a little honey. She still remembered how I liked it. "Mom," she said gently, "I hope you are not upset about what I said yesterday." I gave her a small smile. It surprised me, that is all. She nodded, slowly. "I understand, but we are just trying to think ahead. We want what is best for you." I looked into her eyes. There was concern there. I could see it. But also something else. A firmness. A decision already made. "I know you care," I said softly. "And I want to believe that everything you say comes from love." Claire reached over and placed her hand on mine. "It does. I promise." I believed her. Or at least I wanted to. We sat in silence for a moment, sipping our tea and listening to the wind rustle through the trees. Birds hopped along the fence line. The world looked calm, but something inside me still felt unsettled. "I remember when you broke your arm falling off the bike," I said. "You were only 9. You tried to hide it from me because you did not want to miss your piano recital." Claire smiled faintly. "I remember. You found out, of course." "I always knew when something was wrong," I said. "A mother knows." She looked away for a moment, then back at me. "And now you feel something is wrong again?" I paused. "Yes, but I cannot name it." Claire took a deep breath. "You have always been strong, Mom, but everyone needs support eventually." That word, eventually, hung in the air. It sounded like a quiet countdown. Still, I wanted to trust her. She was my daughter. I had raised her to be kind, thoughtful, and responsible. Perhaps this was her way of protecting me. Perhaps I needed to allow space for her to care for me in return. Later that day, she suggested we go over some of my paperwork together. Bills, documents, insurance. I hesitated but agreed. I wanted to show her that I was still capable, that I had nothing to hide. We sat at the dining room table, and I opened my small file folder. Claire flipped through the papers with care. "Do you manage all of this on your own?" "Yes," I replied. "I always have." She nodded. "You are very organized." Her voice was calm, but her eyes scanned the details too closely, as if searching for a mistake. She stopped on a bank statement. "Do you know what this charge is for?" I leaned forward. "Yes, it is for my garden supplies. I order from them. Every season. She smiled. Okay, good. Her tone was gentle, but it felt like a test, like she needed proof that I still understood my own life. I answered each question patiently. I let her look at every page. I told myself this was just her way of being helpful, but deep down, I felt like I was being evaluated. That evening, as we folded laundry together, Claire spoke again. You know, Mom, if anything ever did happen, I would be here. We all would. You are not alone. I looked at her. Her words were kind. Her voice was steady. I could see she believed what she was saying. And yet, part of me still ached. Not because I doubted her love, but because I doubted the way she was seeing me. Still, I held on to one thing. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe this was all coming from a place of care, not control. That she was still my daughter and I was still her mother, and that we had not lost that deep, silent understanding between us, not yet. It was on the third day of my visit that something unexpected happened. I was sitting on the back porch again, this time alone. The afternoon sun had come out briefly, casting a soft light over the yard. I had a small notebook in my lap, writing down things I needed to remember. Claire's address, Thomas's favorite snacks, what day the trash went out. I liked keeping notes. It helped me stay focused. It gave me a small sense of control. That was when the door creaked open behind me. Mrs. Langston, a voice said. I turned. It was the neighbor, Barbara. She lived 2 houses down. I remembered her from Claire's wedding years ago. We had talked about roses and lemon cake. She was holding a tray of muffins. I hope I'm not interrupting, she said kindly. Not at all, I replied. Please, come sit. She sat beside me and offered a muffin. I took one and thanked her. I heard you were visiting, she said. It is nice to see you. We chatted for a few minutes, about the weather, the kids, the neighborhood. Then her tone shifted. Forgive me, she said, lowering her voice, but I wanted to ask you something. I looked at her, surprised. Of course. Barbara hesitated. Has Claire said anything to you? About your house? My house? I repeated, confused. She nodded. She mentioned something the other day in passing. She said you might be selling soon. I was just surprised to hear that. My heart skipped. I have not decided anything, I said carefully. Claire and I talked about possibilities, but that is all. Barbara nodded, but her eyes looked troubled. I see. Well, forgive me if I overstep, but just be careful. Sometimes when families get involved with money, things get complicated. I stared at her, unsure what to say. She continued. I know you are smart and strong. I just wanted to remind you to listen to your own voice, not just theirs. It was such a simple sentence, but it echoed inside me. Thank you, I said softly. I appreciate your honesty. Barbara stood and gave me a warm smile. I will let you rest, but I am just down the street if you ever need anything. As she walked away, I sat still, the muffin untouched in my hand. Her words had stirred something I had been trying to quiet. Claire had mentioned selling the house, to me. But had she already spoken to others about it? Was this more than a suggestion? Was something happening behind the scenes that I did not yet understand? I looked down at my notebook. The list I had made now seemed strange. Why was I writing down trash days and snack preferences? Was I preparing to stay? Or was I being gently prepared to leave? That evening, as Claire cooked dinner and Thomas helped set the table, I found myself watching them more closely. They laughed, together in the kitchen. He handed her a spoon, and she tapped it against the pot, smiling. It looked ordinary, warm. But I could not stop the question in my mind. Were they talking about me when I was not in the room? Later, as we ate, I brought it up gently. I saw Barbara today, I said. Claire looked up. Oh, how is she? She is well. She mentioned something. That surprised me. Claire paused. What was that? She said, You told her I was selling the house. Claire blinked. I might have said we were thinking about it. I did not mean it was final. Thomas added, It is just something we discussed, Mom. Nothing has been done. I nodded slowly. I understand. I just wish you had told me you were speaking to others about it. There was a quiet moment. Then Claire said, You are right. I am sorry. I wanted to believe her. I truly did. But something inside me had shifted again. Barbara's warning was gentle, but it rang loudly in my ears. Sometimes when people care about you, they also try to control you, without meaning to. Would need to be careful. I would need to listen closely, not just to their voices, but to the silence between them. That night I lay awake for hours. The house was quiet except for the sound of the wind brushing against the windows. I stared at the ceiling and listened to every small creak of the walls. Barbara's words echoed in my mind. Her voice was not sharp, not dramatic. It was calm, like a whisper of truth carried in the breeze. I told myself not to overthink. I told myself to trust Claire. But something had changed. The next morning, I put on a brave face. I smiled as I joined Claire and Thomas in the kitchen. I thanked them for the coffee. I complimented the eggs, even though they were slightly overcooked. I acted like everything was fine, because sometimes pretending is easier than asking hard questions. Claire seemed relaxed. She talked about her work and asked me if I wanted to go for a walk later. I said yes. We passed by Barbara's house, but no one was outside. As we walked down the neighborhood path, Claire slipped her arm through mine. It is so nice having you here, Mom. I looked at her, searching her face for any sign of dishonesty, but she just looked happy. And that made me feel guilty. Guilty for doubting her. Guilty for listening to the quiet voice in my head instead of the daughter beside me. We talked about nothing in particular. Weather, flowers, an old neighbor who had moved away. I tried to enjoy it. I tried to be present, but my thoughts were somewhere else. Back home, in my own house. In the silence of my living room, where I would sit with a cup of tea and my favorite blanket. The place where I had raised Claire, where we had celebrated birthdays, mourned losses, and shared countless meals. Was I really ready to give that up, or worse? Was I being gently pushed toward it without fully realizing? Back at the house, I excused myself and went upstairs to rest. I sat on the edge of the guest bed, staring at the pale yellow wallpaper. I took out my notebook again and flipped to a blank page. Instead of writing a list, I wrote a question. Am I making this all up? I sat still for several minutes, the pen resting in my hand. Then I turned the page and tried to write something more comforting. I listed what I was grateful for. Claire's hospitality, Thomas's kindness, the sunny weather, the hot tea, the warm blankets. But even as I wrote the words, my hand trembled slightly. Something in me was still uneasy. Later that evening, Claire asked if I wanted to call the realtor she had mentioned before. Only to get some information, she said. No pressure. I smiled gently and said, maybe another time. She nodded, but I saw something in her eyes. A flicker of disappointment, quickly hidden. I turned away before she could see the worry in mine. I went back upstairs and closed the door softly. I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. My face had changed, not just from age, but from something else. A kind of weariness. A quiet storm beneath the surface. I pressed my hand to my chest and took a deep breath. I will not let myself be swept away, I whispered. I wanted to believe I still had the strength to decide what was right for me. I wanted to believe I still knew who I was, so I made a choice. For now, I would not argue. I would not confront. I would simply observe, and I would listen. Not just to what was said, but to what was left unsaid. Because even though I tried to ignore it, I could feel it. Something was quietly shifting, and soon, I feared, it would no longer be something I could pretend not to see. It was a small moment, one that might have slipped past me before. But now, I noticed everything. I was folding laundry in the guest room. The afternoon sun had begun to dip lower, casting a soft orange glow through the curtains. I had just finished. Folding one of Claire's sweaters, she had asked me to help catch up on some chores, and I placed it neatly on the bed. The door creaked open slowly. Claire stood there for a second, not saying anything. When I turned to face her, she smiled. But the smile did not quite reach her eyes. "Thank you for helping with all this," she said. I nodded. "Of course." She stepped inside, her arms crossed gently across her stomach. "Mom," she said, "I was wondering, did you ever talk to the lawyer about updating your will?" I paused. I did not expect the question. Not then, not in the middle of folding towels. "No," I replied. "I have not made any changes recently." Claire shifted her weight slightly, glancing at the floor. "I only ask because, well, things are changing, and I want to make sure you are protected, that everything is handled properly." Her words sounded thoughtful, caring even, but her eyes were sharp, calculating, like she was reading a script inside her head. I gave her a small smile. "I appreciate your concern, but I am still thinking about everything." She nodded again, too quickly this time. "That makes sense," she said. Then she left the room as softly as she had entered, and I just stood there, frozen. "It was not what," she said. It was the way she looked at me, like she was waiting for me to become someone else. Someone more fragile, someone she could manage. That night, at dinner, I watched her closely. The way she spoke to Thomas. The way she avoided my eyes when the topic of home came up again. "We were thinking," Claire began carefully. "Maybe next week we could look at some retirement communities together, just to see what is out there," Thomas chimed in. "Some of them are really nice now, Mom, with gardens, little libraries, even walking paths." I smiled gently, cutting my food with slow, deliberate motions. "That sounds interesting," I said. But inside, my heart ached. They thought I was old. They thought I was done living my life. They thought I was confused, slow, fading. And perhaps that is how Claire had started to see me. Not as her mother, not as the woman who raised her through tears and long nights, but as a task, a responsibility, a detail that needed managing. After dinner, I went outside alone. I sat on the wooden swing by the back garden and let the cool air brush against my face. The stars began to appear one by one. I looked up and whispered, "Do you still see me, Claire?" I remembered the way she used to look at me when she was small, like I was her entire world. When she scraped her knee, it was my arms she ran to. When she had nightmares, it was my room she came to for safety. Now, she looked at me like I was a stranger standing in the way of a plan. The ache in my chest was sharp, but so was something else. A quiet voice within me, a whisper of strength. They could look at me however they wanted, but I knew who I was, and I was not done yet. The following morning, I woke with a strange sense of urgency. It was still early. The house was quiet, but my heart was not. I lay in bed for a moment, staring at the ceiling, replaying the last few days in my mind. Barbara's concerned words, Claire's odd glances, Thomas's forced cheer, the talk about retirement homes, and most of all, Claire's question about my will. There was too much silence between the lines, too many things left unsaid. I rose quietly, dressed, and walked downstairs. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen, but Claire was not there. I found her in the backyard, standing beside the flower beds. She was in her robe, barefoot on the stone path, holding her phone. She looked up when she heard me. Her face shifted into a soft smile. "Good morning, Mom." "Morning," I said, stepping outside. The air was crisp, the kind that wakes you up before you even speak. "Claire," I said, my voice calm but clear, "can I ask you something?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Of course." I took a breath and looked into her eyes. "Why do you keep bringing up my will?" She blinked. For a second, she looked like a child caught doing something wrong. But she quickly recovered. "I just want everything to be in order, Mom," she said carefully. "You know, in case anything happens, it is not about money. It is just about being prepared." I kept my eyes on hers. "Is it?" Her mouth opened, then closed again. I stepped closer. "You and Thomas have been very kind. I am grateful. But I need to know something. Are you trying to move me out of my home because you think it is best for me, or because it is easier for you?" Claire's face changed. Slowly, like a curtain being drawn open. I did not mean to make you feel pushed," she said. "That is not what I wanted." "But it is what has been happening," I said. "You have spoken to a realtor. You have looked at retirement homes. You have asked about my will, all without asking me how I feel." She was silent. "Do you think I am confused?" I asked. She looked down. "Not confused, just vulnerable. You are alone. You forget things sometimes. And when you called me crying last month—" "I was grieving," I interrupted. "Your father is gone." I was not confused. I was broken. Claire's eyes welled up. "I know. I wanted to help, but sometimes help feels like control," I said. She looked shaken, but something softened in her. "I was scared," she admitted. "After Dad passed, I saw how lonely you were, and I did not know what to do. I thought if you were closer, I could make sure you were okay." I reached out and took her hand. "I understand wanting to protect me. I do. But I am still your mother. I still have thoughts, opinions, and feelings. I need to be part of the conversation, not just the subject of it." She nodded slowly. "You are right." I could feel her trying to see me again. Not as someone fading, but as someone still standing. We stood there in silence for a long moment. The breeze moved through the trees, and a few leaves danced across the ground. "I will not push any more," she said. "I promise." "Thank you," I whispered. We went inside after that. The kitchen was still quiet, the coffee still warm. I poured myself a cup and sat at the table. I had asked the question I had been afraid to ask. And I had heard the answer I had needed. It did not erase everything, but it mattered. Because truth is not always about answers. Sometimes it is about the courage to ask. After my conversation with Claire, I thought I would feel relief. I expected peace. Instead, my mind raced faster than ever. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling. The room was dark except for the faint glow of streetlights through the curtains. I could hear the quiet hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, but inside my head, a storm raged. What if Claire was right? Was I really forgetting things? Was I becoming vulnerable? The thought frightened me. I wanted to believe I was strong, that I was clear, that I was in control of my own life. But the doubt gnawed at me like a small, hungry animal. I tried to push it away, telling myself I was fine. I have always been fine. Yet every time I closed my eyes, memories came flooding back, moments when I had felt unsure, when I had misplaced my keys, when I had forgotten an appointment. Did these small slips mean I was losing myself? I did not want to admit it. I sat up in bed and reached for my journal on the nightstand. Writing had always helped me sort through my thoughts. The pen moved slowly across the page. I feel lost inside my own mind. I am afraid I am not the woman I used to be. But I do not want anyone to see that fear. Not Claire. Not Thomas. Not even myself. I put down the pen and rubbed my eyes. The silence was heavy. I wanted to call a friend, someone I could trust, but I felt too tired, too vulnerable. Instead, I opened the window slightly and let the cool night air wash over me. I thought about my father. He had been my rock, the one person who always believed in me no matter what. When he passed away, I felt the ground beneath me shift. I had to find my own strength again. But sometimes, in the quiet moments, I wondered if I could. The next morning, the thoughts had not faded. They clung to me like a shadow. I found myself staring out the kitchen window, watching the birds gather near the feeder. I remembered a quote I once read: "Sometimes the hardest battles are fought inside." This felt true. I wanted to fight, to hold on, to prove to myself that I was not losing my mind or my place in this world. But the weight was heavy. At breakfast, Claire was cheerful as usual. She did not mention our talk from the day before. Maybe she thought I would bring it up again. I decided not to. Instead, I smiled and asked about her plans for the day. She told me about her work meetings and a lunch with friends. Listening to her, I realized how much I wanted her to see me as more than her mother who might need help. I wanted her to see me as a person still full of dreams and hopes. Later that day, I went for a walk in the park. The sun was warm, and the trees were beginning to show their autumn colors. As I walked, I tried to focus on the present, on the sound of the leaves crunching under my feet, on the fresh air filling my lungs. But my thoughts kept drifting back to the conversation with Claire. What was the truth about my mind? I decided I needed to face it head on. I called my doctor and scheduled a checkup. I told myself it was not about proving anything to Claire or Thomas. It was about knowing the truth so I could be prepared. Knowing if I needed help. Knowing if I was still the woman I believed myself to be. That night, I lay in bed again, but this time with a small sense of calm. I did not have all the answers. But I was ready to find them, and that was the first step. The days after my doctor's appointment were filled with quiet moments and deep reflection. I did not feel like talking much. The truth, when it came, was neither loud nor dramatic. It was gentle, almost whispered, but it left a mark. The doctor told me that some forgetfulness was normal at my age. It was not serious yet, but I needed to be careful and watch for signs. I nodded, trying to absorb the news without panic. The hardest part was not the diagnosis. It was the silence it left in my heart. I sat alone by the window, watching the rain fall softly outside. The droplets traced patterns on the glass, blurring the world beyond. I felt a quiet pain growing inside me. Not the pain of anger or fear, but a soft ache of loneliness. I missed the days when life felt simple, when my children were young and my husband was alive, when the house was filled with laughter and warmth. Now the silence was heavy. I wanted to cry, but the tears did not come easily. Instead, I closed my eyes and remembered the sound of my daughter's laughter. I remembered the way Thomas used to bring me coffee in bed on Sunday mornings. Those memories were bittersweet, but they gave me strength. I was not ready to give up. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat in the living room. The old clock ticked steadily on the wall. Each tick felt like a heartbeat, a reminder that life moved forward, even when I did not feel ready. I thought about Claire and Thomas. They were trying to help, but sometimes help felt like a weight on my chest. I did not want to be a burden. Wanted to be seen as the woman I still was, strong, independent, full of life. But the quiet pain reminded me that things were changing. I could not ignore it anymore. That night, I did not sleep well. My mind wandered through memories and worries. I thought about the future and the uncertainty it held. Would I be able to live on my own? Would I lose the home I loved so much? Would Claire and Thomas understand me if I told them my fears? In the early hours, I heard the rain slow and then stop. The silence was deep and still. I reached for my phone and sent a message to Barbara. "Can we talk?" I wrote. Barbara was my oldest friend. She had known me since college. She was kind and patient. Within minutes, she called. Her voice was warm and steady. "Of course, Margaret. I am here." I took a deep breath and shared my feelings. I told her about the doctor's visit, the quiet pain, and the fear of losing myself. Barbara listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "You are not alone. You have people who love you and want to support you." Her words felt like a soft blanket wrapping around me. "I know it is hard," she continued, "but you do not have to carry this burden by yourself." I wiped away a tear. "I want to be strong," I said. "You are strong," Barbara said, gently. "But strength also means asking for help when you need it." We talked for a long time that night, about memories, hopes, and fears, about the pain that does not always show on the surface. By the end of the call, I felt a small light inside me, a hope that I could face this quiet pain with courage, that I could find new ways to live, even if things were different. Knew the road ahead would be difficult, but I also knew I was not alone. I thanked Barbara and promised to call again soon. After I hung up, I looked around my quiet house. It felt less lonely somehow. I knew I had to keep moving forward. Slowly, gently, one step at a time, because life was still waiting for me. The days after my quiet conversation with Barbara passed slowly, but a restless feeling grew inside me. I realized that gentle hope was not enough anymore. I needed answers, not just from the doctor or my friends. I needed answers from my family, from Claire and Thomas. They were close to me, yet I felt a distance growing between us. Something was unsaid, something heavy that pressed on my heart. One afternoon, I decided to speak clearly. I could no longer carry this uncertainty alone. Invited Claire and Thomas to my home for tea. I wanted a calm setting, a chance to talk without interruptions. When they arrived, their smiles were warm but cautious. I poured the tea and sat down with them in the living room. The familiar comfort of the room felt strange now. I took a deep breath and began. "There is something I need to understand," I said gently. "I want to know how you both truly feel about me." Claire looked surprised. Thomas shifted in his chair. I continued. I have been feeling unsure. About myself. About us. I feel like I am losing my place in this family. Their eyes met mine, full of concern. Claire reached out to hold my hand. Mom, you are not losing anything, she said softly. But sometimes things change. We all have to adjust. I nodded but pressed on. Have you noticed changes in me? Have you seen me struggle? Thomas spoke next. We have, but we did not want to worry you, he said honestly. I thought it was best to support you quietly. I appreciated their kindness, but I needed more than kindness. I need honesty, I said firmly. If there is something you are afraid to say, please tell me now. Claire looked down for a moment, then met my gaze again. There have been moments, she admitted, when I worried about your memory, about your safety. Her words were gentle but real. I felt a stab of pain, but swallowed it. I understand, I said. It is difficult for me too. We sat in silence for a moment, each of us feeling the weight of the truth. Then I asked, do you think I should ask for help? Maybe a caregiver or someone to check in on me? Thomas looked thoughtful. I think it might be a good idea, he said cautiously, but only if you want it. The conversation was hard, but it opened a door I had been afraid to face. I realized that I could not carry this alone. My family wanted to help, but they needed me to let them in. After their visit, I spent hours reflecting. I thought about my fears, my pride, and the reality before me. I realized that asking for help was not a sign of weakness. It was a step toward strength. The next day, I called a local support group for seniors dealing with memory challenges. Spoke with a kind woman who explained the services they offered. It felt comforting to know there were others like me. I also started to write more in my journal. I wrote about my feelings, my fears, and my hopes. Writing helped me see my situation more clearly. One afternoon, I took a long walk in the neighborhood. The air was crisp, and the leaves rustled beneath my feet. I thought about the changes I had to accept, but I also thought about the new paths I could take. Paths filled with support, love, and understanding. When I returned home, I felt a quiet strength growing inside me. I was ready to face whatever came next. That evening, I called Claire and Thomas. I told them I wanted to work together, to be open and honest, to support each other through this journey. They were relieved and grateful. We agreed to take small steps, with patience and care. Before we ended the call, Claire said something that stayed with me. Mom, we love you. Not because of what you can do or remember, but because of who you are. Those words touched my heart deeply. I realized that my identity was not tied to my memory or strength alone. It was tied to love. The love I shared with my family and the love they gave me in return. That night, I felt peace for the first time. In weeks. Not because the future was clear, but because I knew I would not face it alone. After the honest conversation with Claire and Thomas, something inside me shifted. I could feel the walls I had built around myself begin to soften. For weeks, I had been afraid to see the full truth. Afraid of what it might mean for my life and for my family. But now, I realized I could no longer run from it. I finally understood that denial was no longer an option. The truth was clear. I was facing a change that would reshape everything. One quiet afternoon, I sat alone in the living room, sunlight filtering softly through the curtains. I opened my journal and read the words I had written in recent days. The fears, the hopes, the moments of weakness, and the moments of strength. It was a mirror to my soul. I began to see my journey not as a loss, but as a transformation. A painful, difficult transformation, but one that held the possibility of growth. Thought about my mother, who had cared for her own mother through illness. She had told me once that love is the strongest force in the world, that it can carry us through the darkest times. I decided to hold on to that love, to use it as my anchor. And now, the days that followed, I started to learn more about what lay ahead. I read books about memory loss and aging. I spoke with doctors and support groups. Each new piece of knowledge helped me understand my condition better. It made the fear less sharp. One morning, Claire came to visit with a folder in her hand. She smiled gently and said, "Mom, I found some information about local resources. There are groups, activities, and helpers who can support you." Her kindness warmed my heart. We went through the information together, marking the things that felt right for me. It was a small step, but it felt like hope. As I opened myself to help, I also began to reflect on the mistakes I had made. I thought about the times I had pushed Claire and Thomas away. Times I had been stubborn, refusing to accept their concern. I understood now that love sometimes asks us to be vulnerable, to lean on others, even when it feels difficult. One evening, I called my sister Mary. We had not spoken much in recent years, but I felt the need to reconnect. Mary listened quietly as I shared my thoughts. She reminded me of the importance of family and forgiveness. That night, I realized how much I had been holding on to pride and fear. I decided to open my heart more fully. The next day, I sat down with Claire and Thomas again. I told them, "I understand now. I need your help, and I am ready to accept it." They smiled with relief and love. Thomas said, "We will face this together, Mom. You are not alone." Claire nodded. "We love you and we will be by your side." That night, as I prepared for bed, I felt a strange calmness. The quiet pain had not disappeared, but it had changed. It was softer now, wrapped in understanding and hope. I thought about the future, uncertain, yes, but not empty. I was ready to live each day fully, even if the path was unclear. Before I closed my eyes, I whispered a promise to myself. I will be brave. I will be kind to myself. I will cherish every moment. The journey ahead would be difficult, but I was no longer afraid. I had finally understood that life's true strength lies in love, acceptance, and courage. After the many honest talks, the moments of hope and fear, I knew something had to change. The space I had once felt safe in now felt heavy. I realized that sometimes walking away is the only way to protect your heart. It was not an easy decision. Thought about Claire and Thomas, about our shared past, about the love we had. But I also saw the tension growing, the silent walls building between us. One evening, I sat quietly in my favorite chair, the one by the window. Outside, the sky was painted with soft shades of pink and orange. The beauty of the sunset was a sharp contrast to the storm I felt inside. I thought deeply about what walking away meant for me. Would it be giving up, or would it be a step toward healing? I chose the latter. The next day, I packed a small bag, not with anger or bitterness, but with calm determination. I needed time to think, to breathe, to find myself again. I called a close friend, Margaret, who lived in a quiet town nearby. She welcomed me with open arms, offering a refuge from the storm. When I arrived, Margaret's warm smile and gentle words felt like a balm to my soul. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of peace. During those days away, I allowed myself to rest, to sit with my feelings, without fear or judgment. I wrote in my journal, poured my heart out on the pages. I thought about what I wanted from life, what I needed to heal. I realized that walking away was not about leaving my family forever. It was about creating space. Space for myself. Space for clarity. Space for forgiveness and understanding. I called Claire and Thomas after a few days. I explained my choice calmly. I need this time away, I told them. It is not because I do not love you. It is because I need to find strength for all of us. They were quiet on the phone. I could hear the concern in their voices, but also respect. That meant more than I expected. In the quiet of Margaret's home, I found moments of joy too. We cooked meals together, shared stories, and laughed softly, began to feel my spirit lighten, slowly but surely. One afternoon, I took a walk along the river. The water flowed steadily, never rushing, never stopping. It reminded me that life moves forward, no matter what. I thought about my own journey, the challenges, the pain, but also the hope and love. I knew I was not alone. I was surrounded by people who cared, even when things felt difficult. After 2 weeks, I felt ready to return home. I was not the same woman who had left. I carried new strength inside me, a strength born from reflection and healing. When I walked back through my front door, Claire and Thomas were there. They hugged me tightly. No words were needed. We all understood that walking away was part of the journey. It was a pause, not an end. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt gratitude. Gratitude for the love that had carried me through, for the courage to step back when I needed to, and for the knowledge that sometimes walking away is the bravest choice of all. Even though I returned home, the pain did not leave me. It stayed like a shadow that followed quietly behind. Some days, it felt heavier than others. I learned that pain is not always loud. Sometimes, it is soft and slow, like a whisper in the silence. Tried to keep busy, to focus on the small joys around me. The smell of fresh coffee in the morning, the sound of birds outside my window, the warmth of the sun on my skin. Yet, in quiet moments, the pain would seep back in. I missed the way things used to be, the laughter around the table, the simple closeness. I missed the sense of family that felt solid and safe. But now, everything had changed. Claire and I spoke less often. When we did, the words were careful, like walking on thin ice. Thomas seemed distant, lost in his own thoughts. It was as if the invisible wound between us had not healed. One evening, I sat in the living room, looking at old photographs, pictures of birthdays, holidays, and happy times. Each photo told a story of love and connection, but now, those stories felt distant, almost unreal. I wondered if we could ever find our way back. The pain was not just about broken trust. It was about lost time. The moments that could not be reclaimed. I cried quietly, letting the tears fall without shame. Crying was one of the few ways I could release the hurt inside. In the weeks that followed, I found myself thinking about forgiveness. Could I forgive Claire? Could I forgive Thomas? Could I forgive myself? These questions did not have easy answers. I knew forgiveness was a journey, not a single step. It meant understanding the pain, but choosing not to let it control me. I began to speak with a counselor. She listened without judgment. Her words helped me see that healing takes time, that pain can teach us if we allow it. One afternoon, during our session, she said, "Pain stays because you are still holding on to what was lost. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It means making peace with the past." Those words stayed with me. I realized I was ready to try, to let go, not of love, but of the hurt that held me back. At home, I started small. I wrote a letter to Claire and Thomas, not to send, but to clear my heart. I wrote about my feelings, my hopes, and my fears. I wrote about the pain that stayed with me. Then, I tore the letter into pieces. It was a symbolic act, a way to release the heaviness inside. Slowly, I began to notice small changes. The silence between us became less tense. We found moments to smile, to share a meal, or to sit quietly together. It was not perfect, but it was a start. One morning, Claire brought me a cup of tea. She sat beside me and said, "Mom, I want us to heal together." Her words were simple, but powerful. I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. Healing is not a straight path. It has twists and turns, ups and downs. But I was willing to walk it, because even though the pain stays, it does not have to define us. That evening, as I watched the sun set again, I felt a quiet strength growing inside. The pain was still there, but so was my hope. And that made all the difference. There are moments when I sit quietly and find myself missing the past deeply. Not because I want to go back in time, but because those memories are part of who I am. The past holds pieces of joy, laughter, and love that shaped my life. I remember family dinners filled with chatter and warmth, the smell of my mother's cooking, the sound of children playing in the garden. Those moments were simple, yet precious. They felt like a safe place. Now, when I look around, the house feels different, quieter. I miss the comfort of those old days. Sometimes, I catch myself smiling at a photograph or a memory. Other times, tears come without warning. It is not easy to accept that things have changed, that time moves forward, even when I wish it would pause. I think about Claire when she was little, her bright eyes, full of curiosity, her laughter that could fill the whole room. I wonder if she remembers those days as I do, or if she only sees the pain that came later. Memories can be a strange thing. They are both a gift and a burden. They remind us of who we were and what we have lost. But they can also hold us back if we do not learn to let them go. I have spent many nights replaying the past in my mind. The happy times and the hard moments. I try to understand how we reach this place of distance and hurt. I see now that some wounds take longer to heal than others, and some losses are harder to accept. But missing the past does not mean I want to live there. I want to carry the good memories with me, but also move forward. I want to build new moments of love and connection, even if they look different from before. One day, I found an old box of letters and cards. They were from Claire, written when she was a child. Her small handwriting filled with love and hope. I held those letters close to my heart. They reminded me of the bond we once shared, a bond that still exists, even if it feels fragile now. I decided to keep those letters on my bedside table, a quiet reminder that love can survive, through time and pain. Sometimes, I talk to Claire about our past, not to blame or argue, but to share my feelings and listen to hers. It is not always easy, but those conversations bring us closer. They help us understand each other better. I believe that healing starts with honesty, with opening our hearts, even when it is scary. I miss the past, yes, but I also cherish the present, because the present is where we can make choices, where we can forgive, heal, and grow. I am learning to be patient with myself and with others, to accept that healing is a journey, not a destination, and to find peace in the moments of now. Sometimes I walk in the garden and feel the breeze on my face. I think about the seasons changing, the cycle of life. I know that just like nature, we too must change and grow. I hold on to hope that one day, the past and present will blend into a new future. One where love is stronger than pain, where family means support, not hurt, where trust can be rebuilt, slowly but surely. Until then, I carry my memories gently. I miss the past, but I am ready to embrace what comes next. When the weight of my thoughts became too much, I knew I needed to speak to someone, not just anyone, but a friend who could listen without judgment. One afternoon, I called my old friend, Sarah. We had known each other for years, since before the troubles began. Sarah's voice was warm and calm when she answered. I told her I needed to talk. She invited me to her home. As I walked up her front steps, I felt a mixture of nervousness and relief. Inside, her house was filled with light and soft music. We sat down with cups of tea. I began to share what I had been feeling, the confusion, the hurt, the loneliness. Sarah listened carefully. She did not interrupt or offer quick answers. Instead, she asked gentle questions that made me think. "Have you told Claire how you feel?" she asked. "Have you given yourself permission to grieve?" Her words helped me realize that I had been holding much inside. I was afraid to show my sadness because I wanted to appear strong. But Sarah reminded me that strength does not mean hiding pain. It means facing it with courage. We talked for hours. Sarah shared stories of her own struggles. She told me about times when she felt lost and uncertain. Her honesty made me feel less alone. It was comforting to know that others have walked through darkness and found light again. After our talk, I felt a small sense of peace. It was like a breath of fresh air after being underwater. Sarah encouraged me to be kind to myself, to accept that healing takes time. She said, "You are doing your best. That is enough." I went home feeling lighter. Over the next days, I found myself thinking differently. Instead of focusing only on the pain, I began to notice small moments of joy. The kindness of a neighbor, the beauty of the sunrise, the comfort of a good book. Talking to Sarah opened a door for me. It reminded me that I did not have to carry everything alone, that sharing my feelings could be a source of strength. One evening, Claire called me. Our conversation was still cautious, but it felt warmer. I told her about my talk with Sarah. She listened quietly. For the first time in a long while, I sensed a small bridge forming between us. It was fragile, but it was there. Knew the journey ahead would not be easy. There would still be hard days and moments of doubt. But I also knew I was not alone. I had friends who cared, and I had a growing strength within myself. Sometimes, the hardest step is reaching out, but it can also be the most healing. That is what I learned from my talk with Sarah. In the quiet of my home, I began to write down my thoughts. Journaling became a new way to understand my feelings. I wrote about my fears, my hopes, and my dreams for the future. Writing helped me see that pain is part of the process, but it does not have to be the whole story. Each day, I tried to take small steps forward. Sometimes, that meant simply getting out of bed. Other times, it meant facing difficult conversations. But I kept going, because I believed that healing was possible, and because I wanted to rebuild the bonds that mattered most. Talking to a friend was a turning point for me. It gave me the courage to face my pain honestly, and the hope that one day, things could be different. Saying goodbye is never easy. It carries a weight that touches every part of your heart. Sometimes, goodbyes mean the end of a chapter. Sometimes they mean the start of something new. For me, saying goodbye was both. After so much pain and confusion, I knew I had to let go. Not just of a person, but of a dream I once held tightly. I sat alone in my living room, the silence surrounding me like a heavy blanket. I thought about all the years I spent hoping things would change, hoping for reconciliation, hoping for understanding. But hope, by itself, is not always enough. Sometimes holding on too long only brings more hurt. I remembered the day I told Claire I was removing her from my will. It was not a decision I made lightly. It was a painful choice born from months of silence and broken trust. That day, I felt a mixture of sorrow and relief. Sorrow for what was lost. Relief that I was finally standing up for myself. Saying goodbye means accepting that some relationships cannot be fixed right now. It means creating space for healing, even if it feels lonely. I told Claire that I needed to protect my peace, that I needed to protect myself, and that sometimes love means setting boundaries. I could feel the weight of her silence on the phone, but I also felt a quiet strength within me. I was no longer willing to be hurt in silence. I was ready to say goodbye to the pain that had shadowed my days. After that, I took time for myself. I traveled to a small cabin near the lake. The quiet water and tall trees helped me find stillness. I spent hours walking along the shore, feeling the cool breeze on my face. Nature has a way of healing wounds that words cannot touch. Each day, I allowed myself to feel whatever came: sadness, anger, hope. I wrote letters I never sent. Letters filled with all the things I wanted to say, but could not. Writing became my way of saying goodbye without words. It helped me release the weight I had carried for so long. Saying goodbye is not about forgetting. It is about honoring what was and making room for what can be. I thought about the good times with Claire, the laughter we shared, the moments when we were close. Those memories are treasures I will keep. But I also knew that to move forward, I had to let go of the pain. I returned home feeling lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. I began to focus on the parts of my life I could control: my health, my friendships, my passions. I surrounded myself with people who lifted me up. I learned that saying goodbye opens the door to new beginnings, not just in relationships, but in how I saw myself. I started to believe that I deserve kindness and respect, that my voice matters, that I am worthy of love, even when it is hard to see. Saying goodbye was a brave act of self-love. It was a way of saying, I will take care of myself now. I know that healing is not a straight path. There will be days when memories bring tears, days when I wonder if I made the right choice. But I remind myself that choosing peace is never wrong. I am learning to trust my heart again, to believe that the future holds hope. One day, maybe we will find our way back to each other. But until then, I am saying goodbye with grace and courage. Because sometimes, goodbye is not the end. It is the first step toward a new chapter. A chapter where I am stronger, wiser, and free. Being alone is different from feeling lonely. I am alone now, but I do not always feel lonely. At first, the silence was strange. The house felt bigger, emptier without their voices. I walked through rooms that once held laughter and noise. Now there was only quiet. It was difficult to face the emptiness. Sometimes I wished for company, for someone to talk to. But I also knew that this time alone was necessary. It was a chance to find myself again, to understand who I am when I am not defined by others. At first, I tried to fill the silence with distractions: television, books, busy tasks. But none of it truly reached the deep places inside. So I began to sit with my thoughts, to listen to the feelings I had pushed away for so long. There was sadness, yes, but also something new. A quiet strength growing slowly inside me. I learned to enjoy small moments of peace. The soft light of morning through the window. The warmth of a cup of tea in my hands. The feeling of the breeze on my skin during a walk. Being alone gave me space to breathe, to heal, to dream again. I started to explore new interests. I took up painting, something I had loved as a child. At first, my strokes were unsure, my colors hesitant. But with time, my confidence grew. The canvas became a place where I could express what words could not. Each painting was a step forward. I also began to write. Not just journals, but short stories and poems. Writing helped me understand my journey. It gave shape to my thoughts and feelings. In my solitude, I discovered a part of myself I had forgotten, a woman who is brave, creative, and full of hope. I realized that being alone does not mean being weak. It means having the courage to face yourself, to be still and listen, to find joy in your own company. I also began to reconnect with old friends. Not because I was lonely, but because I wanted to share my new self. These friendships were gentle and kind. They accepted me as I am, without judgment or expectation. I found comfort in their presence. But I was no longer dependent on others for my happiness. I was learning to be whole on my own. Sometimes, I still felt the ache of lost relationships, the empty chair at the table, the missed phone calls. But those feelings did not control me anymore. I acknowledged them and let them pass like clouds in the sky. I found peace in knowing that life is a series of seasons. Some bring warmth and growth. Others bring quiet and reflection. Being alone now is my season of reflection, time to prepare for whatever comes next. I have learned that solitude can be a gift, a chance to nurture your soul, to dream new dreams, to listen deeply to your heart. I am no longer afraid of being alone. Instead, I embrace it with open arms. Because in this space, I am free. Free to heal. Free to grow. Free to become who I am meant to be. Change is often quiet, almost invisible. It happens slowly, like the turning of the seasons. I am not the same woman I was before. I can feel it deep inside me. The pain I carried for so long has softened. It has been replaced by something new, a sense of strength and calm I never knew I had. At first, I did not recognize this new me. I looked in the mirror and saw the same face. But inside, I was different. More patient. More understanding. More at peace. I no longer rush to fix things that cannot be changed. I have learned to accept what life gives me, and to find beauty in the small moments. I am not the same because I have learned to set boundaries, to say no when I need to protect my heart from unnecessary hurt. This was not easy. For many years, I put others before myself. I thought that love meant sacrifice without limits. But now, I know that true love begins with self-respect. I have become more honest with myself and others. I speak my truth, even when it is difficult. I no longer hide my feelings or pretend everything is fine. This honesty has brought me closer to the people who truly matter, and it has shown me who is not meant to stay in my life. I am not the same because I have learned to forgive. Not to forget, but to free myself from anger and bitterness. Forgiveness has opened a door to healing. It has allowed me to let go of the past and focus on the present. I have also grown more hopeful about the future. I believe that new beginnings are possible, that happiness can be found even after loss. I am not the same because I have found joy in simple things. A warm cup of coffee in the morning, a phone call from a friend, the sound of birds outside my window. These small blessings remind me that life is still beautiful. I have become more aware of my own needs and dreams. I am taking steps to pursue passions I had set aside. It feels exciting and a little scary, but I am ready to embrace this new chapter. I am not the same because I have learned to trust myself, to believe that I am capable of making good decisions. This trust has given me confidence to face challenges with grace, to stand up for myself, to ask for help when I need it. I am not the same because I have found peace in being alone. I no longer fear solitude. Instead, I welcome it as a time for reflection and growth. I have learned that being alone can be a source of strength. I am not the same because I have discovered my own worth. I am enough just as I am. I do not need anyone's approval to feel valuable. This realization has freed me from the need to please others. I am living more authentically, more true to myself. I am not the same because I have changed my story. I have moved from a place of pain to a place of healing, from confusion to clarity, from fear to courage. I am proud of the woman I am becoming. She is resilient. She is kind. She is wise. I know there will be more challenges ahead. Life is not always easy, but I am ready to meet them with strength and hope because I am not the same. I am better. I am whole. I am ready for whatever comes next. Sometimes hope arrives quietly. It does not burst like fireworks or shout like thunder. It is a small light, flickering softly in the darkness. For a long time, I felt lost in that darkness. The weight of betrayal and sadness was heavy on my heart. I wondered if I would ever feel joy again. But one day, something changed. A small light appeared, and I noticed it. It started with a simple smile. A smile from a stranger in the grocery store. She did not know my story. She did not see my pain. But her kindness warmed me. That small moment reminded me that good still exists. Then, there was the unexpected call from an old friend. Her voice was gentle and full of concern. We talked for hours, sharing stories and laughter. Her friendship was like a balm to my soul. That small light grew brighter. I began to see beauty in the ordinary, the way the sun shone through the trees, the sound of rain tapping on the window, the smell of fresh bread baking in the oven. These simple things lifted my spirit. I realized that happiness does not always come from grand events. It is often found in small, quiet moments. I started to keep a journal. Each day, I wrote down one thing I was grateful for. At first, it was difficult to find anything, but over time, the list grew longer. Gratitude became a source of strength. It helped me focus on what I still had, rather than what I had lost. The small light also came from within. I discovered a new sense of courage. Courage to face my fears. Courage to try new things. Courage to believe in myself again. I took a painting class. At first, I was nervous and unsure, but with each brushstroke, I felt more alive. Creating art gave me a voice when words failed. The small light grew into a steady flame. I began to reconnect with family members who had been distant. It was not always easy. Old wounds sometimes surfaced, but with patience and honesty, healing began. I found hope in the possibility of new beginnings. The small light also shone through my daily routines. I started to care for myself more, eating healthier meals, going for walks in the fresh air, getting enough sleep. These small acts of self-love helped me feel stronger. Learned that healing is not a straight path. There are good days and bad days, moments of doubt and moments of joy, but the small light reminded me to keep moving forward. It taught me that even in darkness, there is always a spark. That spark can grow if we nurture it with patience and kindness. I began to dream again. Not big, overwhelming dreams, but small hopes that felt possible. A trip to the countryside, a new friendship, learning to cook a favorite recipe. These small hopes gave me something to look forward to. The small light also helped me forgive, not to forget the pain, but to free myself from its hold. Forgiveness was a gift I gave to myself. It allowed me to release anger and bitterness, and to open my heart to peace. I realized that healing is not just about fixing what is broken. It is about growing into a new version of yourself, one that is stronger, wiser, and kinder. The small light showed me that I am not defined by my past. I have the power to choose how I live today and how I hope for tomorrow. Sometimes, the small light came from unexpected places. A kind word from a neighbor, a gentle touch from my dog, a quiet moment of prayer or meditation. These small gifts reminded me that I am not alone, that love and hope are always near. The small light is still with me. It guides me on this journey of healing and growth. I know that the road ahead will not always be easy, but I am ready, because I have learned to see the light, even in the darkest times. Starting over is never easy. It feels like stepping into unknown territory without a map. For a long time, I was afraid to take that first step. The past held me tightly, like a shadow I could not escape. But slowly, I realized that I had a choice. I could stay stuck in pain, or I could begin again. The decision was mine. I chose to begin again. It did not mean forgetting everything that happened. It meant honoring my past but not letting it control my future. I started with small changes, waking up a little earlier to enjoy quiet moments before the day began, making my bed each morning. These simple acts gave me a sense of order and calm. I created a new daily routine. I added things that made me feel good, a morning walk in the park, reading a few pages of a book I loved, drinking tea slowly, savoring the warmth. These moments became anchors in my day. I also began to care for my body more, eating healthier meals, even when I did not feel like it, stretching gently to relieve tension, going to bed earlier to rest well. My body needed this kindness. It was part of my healing. I set goals, but they were gentle goals, not big or overwhelming, just simple steps toward a better life, like calling a friend once a week, trying a new hobby, cleaning one small area of the house. Each small victory gave me hope. I learned to be patient with myself. Change does not happen overnight. There are days when I want to give up, when old feelings try to pull me back, but I remind myself why I began again. To live fully, to be happy, to love myself. I began to explore new interests. I took a cooking class. I joined a book club. I even tried painting, something I had always wanted to do but never dared. These new activities brought joy. They helped me see that life still held surprises. I met new people who supported me, people who listened without judgment, who encouraged my growth. It was a comfort to know I was not alone. I also reconnected with old friends. Some relationships were different now, but I appreciated the chance to rebuild trust. Slowly, I felt my heart open again. I began to dream again, not with fear or doubt, but with hope. I thought about the future with excitement. I pictured places I wanted to visit, books I wanted to read, experiences I wanted to have. Beginning again was not just about healing. It was about living fully and joyfully. I realized I had been holding on to pain too tightly. Pain that was no longer serving me. I made a choice to let it go, little by little. I learned to celebrate small successes. Each smile, each kind word, each peaceful night's sleep. They all meant I was moving forward. I discovered that beginning again means embracing change, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it feels uncertain. It means trusting yourself to find your way. I am still learning, still growing. But I am no longer afraid. Because I know that every new day is a chance to start fresh, to write a new chapter in my life. Beginning again has taught me to be brave, to face challenges with courage, to love myself through every step. It has shown me that I am stronger than I thought, more resilient than I believed, and more worthy of happiness than I ever imagined. I am grateful for this new beginning, for the chance to rebuild my life on my own terms, to find peace and joy within myself. I am ready to embrace the future, with hope in my heart and light in my soul, because I have begun again, and this time, I will not look back. Sometimes people return when you least expect them. They come back with words that sound hopeful, with promises that seem sincere. After all the pain and distance, they try to re-enter your life. I was not sure how to feel when that moment came. For me, it was a quiet afternoon when I received the message. His words were gentle, almost apologetic. He said he wanted to talk, to explain, to make things right. At first, my heart wanted to believe him, to hope for reconciliation, but my mind reminded me of the past, the hurt, the betrayal, the broken trust. I felt torn between hope and fear. Could I open my heart again? Could I risk being hurt once more? I thought about all the work I had done, all the healing and growth. Would I throw that away? I decided to meet him, but with caution. I told myself to listen carefully, to watch not just his words, but his actions. When we met, he looked different, tired, regretful. He spoke softly, explaining his mistakes. He said he missed me. He said he wanted to change. I wanted to believe him, but I also knew that change is difficult. People do not always become who they say they will be. I asked questions, hard questions, about the past, about the pain he caused. He answered honestly, or at least it seemed so. There was silence between us at times, moments when I felt uncertain. I realized that trust is not given freely. It is earned, slowly and carefully. I told him that I needed time, that forgiveness is a process. He nodded, understanding, in his eyes. He did not pressure me. That was a small sign of respect. Over the next few weeks, we met occasionally. He showed up when he said he would. He listened when I spoke. He did not rush the process. Still, my heart remained guarded. I remembered the pain too clearly, but I also saw glimpses of the man he wanted to be. It was a difficult balance, to hope, but also to protect myself. One day, I caught myself dreaming of a future together, a life where the past did not control us, where love was stronger than hurt. But then, reality returned. I remembered why I had to be careful. Because healing is fragile. Because not everyone is ready to change. Because I deserve respect and honesty. I spoke to my close friends about this. Their advice was wise and kind. They reminded me to trust my instincts, to be patient, to put myself first. Their support gave me strength, also reflected deeply on my own feelings. What did I truly want? Not what I hoped for, but what was real. I realized I wanted peace, not just in my heart, but in my life. I wanted to feel safe, to be treated with kindness and respect. I wanted to love without fear. As time passed, I noticed small changes in him. He kept his promises. He showed patience. He learned to listen. But I also noticed moments of old behavior, times when he grew defensive, when he avoided difficult conversations. I understood that change is not a straight path. It takes effort from both people. I asked myself if I was ready to walk that path again, or if I needed to continue on my own. This was a painful question, but an important one, because my well-being was at stake. In the end, I decided to protect myself first, to continue my journey of healing and growth, to keep the small light shining inside me. I told him that I cared about him, but that I needed more time, more proof that he was serious about change. He respected my decision. He promised to keep working on himself. I felt a mix of sadness and relief. Sadness for what might have been. Relief that I had chosen my own peace. This experience taught me many things. That people can try to come back, but it is up to us to decide if we will let them in. That forgiveness is not forgetting. That love is not enough if it does not come with respect and honesty. And that the most important relationship we have is with ourselves. I am grateful for the strength I have found, for the courage to say no when I need to, for the wisdom to know when to hold on and when to let go. The future remains uncertain, but I face it with hope and confidence, because I know my worth, and I am ready for whatever comes. Next, time has a way of changing us, not just the passing days, but the moments in between. The quiet struggles, the hard lessons, the small victories. I look at myself now and see someone different, someone stronger, more aware, more patient. When I think back to where I began, it feels like a lifetime ago. The pain that once consumed me now feels distant. Not forgotten, but no longer in control. I have learned to listen to my heart, to understand my emotions without fear. I do not rush to judgment anymore. I take a breath. I reflect. I respond with thoughtfulness. This change did not happen overnight. It was slow and steady, sometimes barely noticeable. But it was real. I used to doubt myself often, wondering if I was too sensitive, if I was overreacting, if I deserved happiness. Now I know I do. I deserve love, respect, and peace. I have seen how far I have come, from confusion to clarity, from sadness to hope, from fear to courage. This journey has taught me about boundaries, how important it is to protect my space and feelings, to say no when something feels wrong, to say yes when it feels right. I am no longer afraid to stand up for myself, even when it is difficult, because I understand that my voice matters, that my feelings matter, that my life matters. I have grown in ways I never expected. I am more confident in who I am, more certain of my values, more willing to embrace change. I see challenges as opportunities, not threats. This mindset has opened new doors for me. I feel freer, more alive, more connected to myself. I have also learned the power of forgiveness, not just forgiving others, but forgiving myself. Letting go of guilt and regret. Understanding that mistakes are part of being human. This has been one of the hardest lessons, but also one of the most healing. I am kinder to myself now, less critical, more understanding. I have learned to celebrate my progress, no matter how small. Each step forward is a victory. Each moment of peace is a gift. I am proud of who I am becoming. This new version of myself is someone I respect, someone I enjoy spending time with, someone who knows her worth. I also see how my relationships have changed. Some have grown deeper, built on trust and honesty. Others have gently faded when they no longer fit my life. This has been painful at times, but necessary to make space for healthier connections. I have learned to surround myself with people who lift me up, who support my growth, who accept me as I am. This has brought me joy and comfort. I no longer feel alone in this journey because I have found community. People who understand and care. I am grateful for these relationships. They remind me that I am worthy of love and friendship. I am also grateful for the quiet moments alone, when I can reflect and recharge, when I can listen to my thoughts and dreams. These moments have become sacred to me, a time to reconnect with my true self. I have learned to trust my intuition, to follow my heart even when the path is unclear. This has given me courage to take risks, to try new things, to open myself to new experiences. I know I will face challenges ahead, that life is not always easy, but I am ready, because I am different now, stronger, wiser, more resilient, more hopeful. I have found my inner light, and I will let it shine. No matter what comes my way, I am proud of this woman I have become, and I look forward to the chapters still to come. Because now, I know that change is possible, that growth is possible, that happiness is possible. And it all begins with believing in myself. Choosing myself was not an easy decision. It took time to realize that my own happiness mattered. For years, I put others first, trying to keep peace, trying to fix what was broken, trying to please everyone. But in the process, I lost sight of who I was. I became tired, empty. And sometimes I even forgot to care for my own heart. It was a quiet moment one afternoon when I understood that I needed to change. I was sitting alone in my favorite chair, the sunlight streaming through the window. I felt a deep ache inside, not sadness, but a longing to be whole again, to feel alive, to feel free. That day, I made a promise to myself. I chose to put my needs first, not because I was selfish, but because I was worthy, because I deserved to be happy, because my life mattered. This choice did not mean I stopped caring for my family or stopped loving them. It meant that I needed to love myself too. And sometimes, that meant saying no to demands that hurt me, saying no to words that made me doubt myself, saying no to actions that lowered my spirit. Choosing myself also meant setting clear boundaries that protected my heart, boundaries that respected my peace. At first, this felt strange, even selfish. But as time passed, it became empowering. I felt lighter, freer, more in control of my own happiness. I started to see the world differently, not through the eyes of fear or doubt, but through the eyes of hope and strength. I learned to listen to my body and mind, to rest when I needed to speak up when I felt unheard, to walk away from situations that drained me. I began to build new habits, small daily acts of self-care, like taking quiet walks in the park, writing in my journal, reading books that inspired me, listening to music that lifted my soul. These simple things helped me reconnect with myself. I found joy in the little moments. A warm cup of tea, the sound of birds outside, the feeling of sunlight on my skin. I also found strength in making decisions for myself, not waiting for others to approve, not fearing their reactions, but trusting my own judgment. Sometimes choosing myself meant facing difficult emotions, feelings of guilt, loneliness, fear of change. But I learned to sit with those feelings, to understand them without letting them control me. I reminded myself that growth often comes with discomfort, and that it was okay to feel vulnerable, because vulnerability is part of being human, part of being brave. I also realized that choosing myself meant forgiving those who hurt me, not to forget or excuse their actions, but to free myself from anger and pain. This forgiveness was a gift I gave to myself. It helped me heal and move forward. As I continued on this path, I noticed changes in my relationships. Some people accepted the new me, supported my choices. Others struggled to understand. Some even pulled away. That was painful. But I knew that I could not control their reactions, only my own, and I chose peace over conflict. I chose to surround myself with those who lifted me higher, people who respected my boundaries, who celebrated my growth. This made my life richer, more joyful, more fulfilling. Choosing myself also meant dreaming again, allowing myself to hope for a better future, to imagine new possibilities, to set goals that excited me. I started to plan for things I had once thought impossible, traveling to new places, learning new skills, building a life that reflected my true self. This renewed sense of purpose gave me energy, motivation, a reason to wake up every day with a smile. I am not perfect. I still face challenges, moments of doubt, times when old fears creep back in. But now, I have the tools to face them, to choose myself again and again. Because choosing myself is not a one-time event. It is a daily practice, a commitment to my own well-being, a declaration that I matter, and that my happiness matters too. This choice has changed my life. It has opened doors I never knew existed. It has helped me find peace in the storm. It has shown me that I am enough, just as I am. And for that, I am deeply grateful. I choose myself today, tomorrow, and every day after that, because I am worth it, because my heart deserves love, because my life is precious, and I will honor it by living fully. A new day brought with it a sense of calm I had not felt in a long time. It was not because everything had changed overnight. No, the world outside was the same. The sun rose, the birds sang, and the wind whispered through the trees. But inside me, something was different. I smiled, not because I had forgotten the pain, not because I ignored the past, but because I survived, because I had grown stronger. That morning, I woke up feeling lighter. The heavy weight of anger and sadness had lifted, even if just a little. I stretched my arms and looked out the window. The sky was soft blue with gentle clouds. It felt like a quiet promise of hope. As I moved through my morning routine, I noticed the small details, the warmth of the coffee cup in my hands, the aroma filling the kitchen, the soft hum of the radio playing a familiar song. I realized that these small moments were gifts, pieces of peace scattered throughout the day. Decided to take my time, to move slowly, to breathe deeply. No rush, no pressure, just me and the present moment. Later, I sat in my garden. The flowers were blooming, their colors bright and alive. I touched the petals gently, feeling the softness beneath. My fingers. The earth smelled fresh after the rain the night before. I felt connected. To nature. To life. To myself. In that quiet space, I thought about how far I had come, the pain I had endured, the lessons I had learned, the strength I had found. I realized that each day was a new beginning, a chance to choose happiness, to choose peace, to choose love, not only for others, but for myself. The memories of the past still lived inside me, but they no longer controlled me. I carried them like a book, something to read and understand, but not something to keep me trapped. That day, I made a small plan. Nothing big or overwhelming, just small steps, things that would help me build a better life. I decided to call an old friend, someone who had been there before, who understood the quiet strength it took to heal. Wrote down a list of simple goals. Read a new book. Take walks every morning. Try cooking a new recipe. Spend more time outside. These small goals felt important. They were like gentle reminders that life still held joy. Later in the afternoon, I went for a walk in the park. The air was fresh and cool. Children laughed in the distance. People passed by with smiles and kind words. I felt a part of the world again, not isolated, not forgotten, but connected. As I walked, I noticed a mother playing with her child. Their laughter was pure and free. I smiled to myself, remembering the times I had felt that kind of happiness, and knowing it could come again. Walking slowly, I let go of the heavy thoughts, the doubts that had held me back. I focused on the rhythm of my steps, the beat of my heart, the beauty around me. When I returned home, I felt tired, but peaceful. I prepared a simple dinner for myself. Sitting at the table, I savored each bite, the flavors, the textures, the nourishment. I thought about the future, how it was still uncertain. But now, uncertainty did not scare me as much, because I knew I had the strength to face it, to keep moving forward, to choose joy, even when life was hard. That night, before bed, I wrote in my journal. I wrote about the new day, the hope it brought, the small victories, the peace I was starting to feel. I thanked myself for choosing to keep going, for choosing to believe in better days. And as I closed my eyes, I felt calm, ready to face whatever tomorrow would bring. Because a new day was not just a start, it was a chance to live fully, to love deeply, to be kind to myself, and to know that no matter what, I was enough. The journey was still ahead, but now I walked it with courage, with hope, with a heart open to new beginnings. A new day had come, and I was ready to embrace it. Gratitude is a quiet power. It does not shout or demand attention. Instead, it gently opens the heart. It reminds us of what we have, not what we lost. That morning, I woke with a new feeling inside me, a sense of thankfulness that surprised me. It was not always easy to feel grateful. After all the pain, the betrayal, and the long nights of doubt, I thought gratitude might feel impossible. But somehow, it was there, soft and steady. I looked around my small kitchen. The sunlight spilled through the window, making everything warm. I thought of the simple things, clean water, food on the table, a roof over my head, things I had taken for granted before. Now, I saw them as gifts. I decided to say thank you, not just to the world, but to the people who had helped me, even in small ways. The friend who listened when I was broken, the stranger who smiled kindly on a hard day, the family members who had not turned away completely. I picked up my phone and called my closest friend, Susan. Her voice was warm and comforting, just like I remembered. "I want to thank you," I said softly, "for being there when I felt lost." She laughed gently, but her voice showed she understood. We all need someone sometimes. Our conversation was simple but healing. It reminded me that connection was a part of recovery. After the call, I wrote thank you notes, not long or fancy, just honest words. To those who had supported me, I wrote, "Thank you for believing in me." To those who had hurt me, I wrote, "Thank you for teaching me my own strength." Writing these notes was like lifting a weight from my chest. It did not erase the pain, but it made room for something new. Hope. Later that day, I took a walk to the park. As I moved slowly along the path, I thought about the people in my life, how each person, each moment, had shaped me. Not all moments were happy. Some were full of tears and anger. But even those moments held lessons. I stopped near a bench and sat down. The sky was clear, and the air smelled of fresh grass. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Thanked myself quietly for holding on, for the courage it took to face the truth, for the choice to keep going, even when it felt impossible. Gratitude helped me see that I was no longer a victim. I was a survivor, and a woman who could give thanks, even in difficult times. When I returned home, I found an old photo album. I opened it slowly. Pictures of my children as babies, smiling and full of life. Photos of family gatherings filled with laughter, images of happy days that now seemed so distant. I smiled softly. These memories were precious. I decided to send a message to my daughter, Emma. Not to reopen old wounds, but to say thank you for the good times. She replied briefly but kindly. It was not a perfect moment, but it was a start. I understood that gratitude was not about forgetting pain or pretending everything was perfect. It was about recognizing the light, even in shadows. That evening, I sat by the fireplace with my journal. I wrote about my day, the small moments of grace I had noticed. I wrote about the people who had shown me kindness and those who had challenged me. I thanked the universe for giving me another chance to heal. As the fire crackled softly, I felt a peacefulness I had not known in months. Gratitude was teaching me to live again, to see the beauty in simple things, to embrace both the past and the future with an open heart. Before I went to sleep, I whispered a quiet thank you. To the night sky, to the stars, to myself, for being here, for choosing hope, for saying yes to a new day. Gratitude was no longer just a word. It was a way of life, and I was ready to live it fully. Forgiveness is a journey. It is not a simple word or a quick feeling. It is something we must choose every day. I had spent years blaming myself for mistakes I made, for moments I wished I could take back, for words I said too quickly or not at all. Carried a heavy burden inside me. It weighed on my heart and clouded my mind. But slowly, I began to see that forgiveness was possible, not because I was perfect, but because I was human, and humans make mistakes. One morning, as sunlight filled my room, I looked in the mirror. For the first time in a long while, I saw a woman who deserved kindness, not only from others but from herself. I said aloud, "I forgive you." The words felt strange at first, like stepping into new shoes that needed time to fit. But I repeated them. "I forgive you." I thought about the times I had judged myself harshly, the moments when I felt weak or lost, the days I wished I had been stronger. I forgave myself for all of it. I did not need to be perfect to be worthy of forgiveness. I remembered the long nights I spent crying quietly, the times I felt alone, even in a crowded room, the moments when I doubted my own worth. I forgave myself for those feelings, because they were part of my healing. Forgiveness did not erase the past. It did not change what had happened, but it freed me from carrying the pain alone. I began to write in my journal every day, not to relive the hurt, but to understand it, to speak gently to myself, to offer love where there was once anger. Sometimes the words came easily. Other times, they felt like a struggle, but I kept going. I pictured my younger self, the woman I was 10, 20 years ago. held her in my mind's arms, and told her she was loved, that she was brave, that she deserved forgiveness too. I realized that forgiving myself was the first step to healing my soul. It was the key to opening a new chapter in my life. One without shame or regret. One filled with compassion and hope. When my daughter Emma called, I felt a soft peace inside. Not because everything was perfect between us, but because I was no longer holding anger like a shield. I could listen with an open heart. I could speak with kindness. Our conversations were not easy. Sometimes old wounds opened. But forgiveness helped me stay calm. It helped me remember that we are all flawed, that love is stronger than mistakes. One afternoon, I visited the garden behind my house. I sat on a bench and watched the flowers bloom. Each petal was delicate, yet strong enough to grow through dirt and rain. I thought about myself and my own growth. How forgiveness was like those petals, soft but powerful. It was a gift I could give myself every day. Not just once, but again and again. I breathed deeply and felt the weight inside me begin to lift. A new light was shining in my heart. It was not the light of forgetting. It was the light of understanding, of acceptance, and most of all, of love. That night, I wrote a letter to myself, not to criticize or judge, but to celebrate, to say thank you for surviving, for choosing forgiveness over bitterness, for opening the door to peace. I read the letter quietly, and I smiled, because I knew that forgiveness was not the end. It was the beginning of freedom, of joy, of a life I could finally embrace fully. I was ready to move forward, to live with a heart unburdened by the past, to love myself as I deserved. Forgiveness had changed me. It had made me stronger, and I knew that I would carry this gift with me always. Freedom is a feeling that touches the soul. It is not about places or things. It is about the space inside us. For so long, I felt trapped by pain, by doubt, by the weight of others' opinions. But now, I could feel something new growing inside me, a lightness, a joy, a sense of freedom that was quiet but strong. One morning I decided to walk barefoot outside. The grass was cool and soft beneath my feet. I felt the earth connect with my skin. It was a small act, but it meant everything to me. It was a way to feel alive again, to remind myself that I belonged here, that I was part of the world. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. The fresh air filled my lungs. I could hear birds singing, leaves rustling. The world was alive with sound and color, and so was I. This moment was mine. I smiled quietly. I was free. Freedom is not about forgetting. It is about accepting who we are, where we have been, and where we want to go. I thought about my past, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the long nights of tears. They were a part of my story, but they no longer controlled me. I was no longer a prisoner of those memories. Instead, I was their keeper, the one who held the power to choose what to do with them. I walked slowly along the garden path. The flowers swayed gently in the breeze. I felt the sun on my face and the wind in my hair. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. I realized that freedom was not a destination. It was a journey, a daily choice. To let go of fear, to embrace hope, to live fully, even with imperfections. That afternoon, I danced in my living room. The music was soft but full of life. Moved slowly, feeling every beat in my heart. Dancing was a way to celebrate. to show myself that I could find joy again. It did not matter if I was alone. What mattered was that I was present, that I was free. Sometimes, freedom comes in small moments. A smile from a stranger, a deep breath after a hard day, a quiet walk in nature. These moments add up. They build a life worth living. I thought about the people who had doubted me, who had tried to hold me back. I felt no anger now, only a calm confidence. I was free from their judgment, free from their control, free to be myself. That evening, I sat by the window and watched the stars. The night sky was vast and endless. It reminded me that I was a small part of something much bigger. And that was okay. I whispered a thank you to the universe for freedom, for life, for the chance to start anew. Before I went to sleep, I wrote in my journal, "I am free," I wrote. "Free to love, free to dream, free to be me." These words felt true deep inside. They gave me hope for tomorrow, for a future filled with possibility. Freedom is a gift I give myself every day. It is a choice to live with courage, to open my heart, to trust in life again. I knew that challenges would come, that not every day would be easy. But freedom gave me strength. It gave me a reason to keep going, to keep believing, to keep loving. I am free. And that freedom is the most beautiful thing I have ever known. Knowing who I am has been a long journey. It is not something that came to me quickly or easily. I spent many years lost in confusion, wondering if I was enough, if I mattered, if my voice had meaning. But now, after all I have lived through, I finally feel certain. I know who I am. I am a woman who has faced pain and come through stronger. I am someone who has loved deeply, even when it hurt. I am not perfect. I do not have all the answers. But I have courage, and that courage has carried me through. Every scar on my heart tells a story of survival, of hope, of growth. I look in the mirror and see a reflection of resilience, a woman who has been broken but is healing. I see strength in my eyes, strength born from years of learning to trust myself again. I remember the times I doubted my worth, when I let others' opinions shape how I saw myself. I wasted too many moments feeling small, but no more. Today, I stand tall, not because I am proud or boastful, but because I have found peace within. I have learned to accept myself, flaws and all. This acceptance is not easy. It requires patience and kindness. It means forgiving my mistakes and celebrating my victories, even the small ones. I am a woman of many layers, a mix of joy and sadness, strength and vulnerability, dreams and fears. All these parts make me whole. I am learning to listen to my heart, to honor my feelings, to trust my intuition. These things guide me now, more than the voices of doubt. I am no longer afraid to speak my truth, to say what I need, to set boundaries, to stand up for myself with calm confidence. My relationships have changed too. I choose to surround myself with people who lift me up, who see me for who I truly am, who respect my journey. I no longer try to please everyone. That was exhausting and empty. Now, I focus on connections that bring joy and growth. Knowing who I am means knowing what I deserve. It means saying yes to kindness and respect, and saying no to anything less. I am learning to love myself deeply, not in a selfish way, but in a way that honors my spirit, that fills me with peace, that gives me strength to face whatever comes next. I think about my past with gentle eyes. I do not forget the pain, but I do not carry it like a heavy chain anymore. It is part of my story, yes, but it does not define me. I am more than my mistakes. more than my regrets, more than the hurt I have endured. I am a woman who is growing every day, who is discovering new parts of herself, who is opening to love and possibility. This knowing has brought freedom, freedom to be myself without fear, to live authentically, to chase dreams that feel true to my heart. It has given me peace in the quiet moments, peace in the storms, peace in the unknown. I want to share this with you, wherever you are listening. If you feel lost or unsure, if you doubt your worth or your path, know that you are not alone and that you can find your way. You can learn who you are beneath the noise, beneath the fears and the pain. You can find your own strength, your own voice, your own light. It starts with kindness to yourself, patience, a willingness to keep going even when it is hard. I believe in you because I have been there too, and I have found my way. I am still learning, still growing, still becoming. And that is the beautiful part. Life is not about having all the answers. It is about the journey of discovery, the chance to become more fully who we are meant to be. So I stand here today with open arms, ready to embrace what comes next. Knowing who I am is my greatest gift, and I will carry it with me always. As I come to the end of my story, I want to share something from my heart. This journey has been long and difficult, filled with pain, confusion, and moments of deep sadness. But it has also been full of hope, growth, and healing. If you have listened with care, I thank you. Thank you for walking with me through these chapters of my life. I want you to know that you are never alone. No matter what you are facing, there is strength inside you waiting to be discovered. Sometimes life brings challenges that feel overwhelming. Family struggles, betrayal, loss, and loneliness can make us question who we are. But I have learned that these moments do not define us. They are part of our story, yes, but not the whole story. Within each of us lies a powerful spirit, a light that cannot be dimmed no matter how dark the night. You have that light too. Even if you cannot see it now, it is there, waiting to shine through the cracks, to heal the wounds, to guide you forward. My message to you is simple. Be kind to yourself. Treat yourself with the same love and patience you would give a dear friend. When you feel weak or lost, remember, that is part of being human. It is okay to feel pain. It is okay to cry. But do not stay stuck there. Keep moving, even if the steps are small. Seek out people who support and encourage you. Do not be afraid to ask for help. We are not meant to walk this path alone. I want you to believe in your worth, not because of what others say or do, but because you are uniquely you. Your story matters. Your voice matters. You have gifts to share with the world. No one else can be exactly who you are. That is your strength. Hope you will find the courage to stand up for yourself, to speak your truth with calm confidence, to set boundaries that protect your heart, to choose peace over conflict, to walk away from what harms you. You deserve happiness. You deserve respect. You deserve to live a life filled with love and joy. If I could tell my younger self one thing, it would be this. Do not rush. Do not be afraid to take time to heal. Your journey is not a race. It is a gentle unfolding. Every step teaches you something new. Every tear waters your strength. Every heartbreak opens your heart wider. Trust the process. Trust yourself. I am proud of the woman I have become, and I want you to be proud of who you are becoming too. Life will not always be easy, but it will always be worth it. There is beauty even in the hardest moments. If you look closely, You will find it. It might be a kind word, a gentle smile, a quiet moment of peace. Hold on to those moments. They are reminders that light exists, that hope exists, that love exists. You are never truly alone, even when it feels that way. I want to thank you again for listening, for sharing this journey with me. If this story touched your heart, please remember to be gentle with yourself and with those around you. We all carry unseen battles. We all need kindness and love. May you find both in abundance. Before we finish, I would love to hear from you. Where are you listening from? What part of this story spoke to you? Please share your thoughts with kindness. And if you feel moved, consider subscribing. Because tomorrow, I will share another story. One filled with hope and strength, just like this one. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. May your journey be filled with light and love.